Well, it's day 16th of Gothtober 2021. We passed the halfway mark into the event. Um, so far, we have beaten 2 horror games, working on the third one, The Letter, which is a horror visual novel. It's a really good game. I mean, it's not too horrific. It's not too scary. It's more creepy than anything else. But I like the story. It's a long, it's a long game though. I have a feeling this is going to be a long ass game. So, but yeah, the story is really interesting. It's starting to ramp up a little bit in terms of the spookiness. And I have played about 8 hours of this game, so 4 sessions of Gothtober. This might end up being the only game that we have to complete for the entirety for the rest of the month. I think I have 2 more games lined up before dawn or until dawn, and then State of Decay. We might be able to squeeze in until dawn. State of Decay is also a really long game, so we might not even get to that game this month, but we'll see. Alright, let me start up this game here. I like that they're really trying to build up these characters. You know, you get to know a lot about them. So it's not just like surface level horror. Another sigh comes out, tired and weary, and then I pop the tablet into my mouth.
Zach? What time is it?
This is where we stopped last time, right? No, is it? No. We went further past that. Okay, it was right here. Okay, what is this? Okay. The bottle in my hand hits the table with more force than necessary. As much as I trust my friends, there are some things I'd rather keep to myself.
Morning, Bella. Did you sleep well?
She answers the question with a long, drawn-out yawn, one reminiscent of a child. A chuckle manages to come out of my mouth at the sight. In this manner, it's easy to mistake her for someone too young for responsibilities. I'm inexperienced and immature even. Easy to forget she was thrust into the role of an adult early than her own dreams can afford. To overlook how surprisingly observant she can be at times. Maybe not in the same level Ash exercises for his investigations or Rebecca needs for her own work, but it's certainly enough to deftly put what she sees around her on canvas. As of the way her eyes flickers to the table in my hands, and my hand says something, it is that I won't be able to avoid the questions this time.
Only a little. I don't remember how I ended up on the bed, though.
Uh-huh.
My doing. You didn't look very comfortable sleeping on the couch, all hunched up like that.
It would have been enough for something temporary. Sorry I stole your bed.
Hey, it doesn't matter. Besides, what kind of gentleman would I be if I leave a lady sleeping in such uncomfortable conditions? Not in this house. My nana will give me a tough scolding if I ever did that, I'm telling you.
Thanks a lot, Zach. I know I barged in at a very inconvenient time last night. I wasn't really thinking when I did, and...
Hey, it's cool, Bella. I ain't mad at you. That's what friends do. You guys are welcome here anytime. Although Ashton abuses the anytime part a lot, I don't really mind.
Well, you should lock the frickin' door. I don't understand why he has his door unlocked.
We might have less wiggle room if all four of us are present, considering the size of this place. But as long as no one makes anything explode, it's totally fine.
The only thing that's gonna be exploding is your dick. Ash's dick.
Fine or not, I still owe you one for last night's trouble. Especially since you don't seem to be...
A concerned expression passes over her features as she spares another cursory glance over the table, back to the bottle holding every small piece of what keeps the bad memories at bay. The blood blooming over Pa's heart, the horrified look out on Ma's face as she watches him fall lifeless to the ground, and every ounce of spite seeping from the stranger's smile. You don't belong here. You monkeys don't belong here. It never stops, doesn't it?
Well, you don't seem to be feeling well. Let me know, okay? I'll make it up to you somehow.
She makes a slight gesture with her head towards the bottle. Why would she even do that? That's kind of rude. The bottle's none of your business, bitch. He took you in and then you're gonna be eyeing the bottle? Like trying to say, oh, I see that you're taking some antidepressants. That's not very nice. Asking a question without really asking. Subtlety has never been one of her greatest assets, but right now even Ash would have been a little amazed, if not at loss for words at that. She has left it up to me whether I'll give her the response and she wants to hear or not. A little clever coming from her, if anyone would ask me. And then she dares actually ask Zach about what's going on with him when she doesn't even tell you what's going on with her. So play it off.
Oh. What, this?
Of course it's going to be a minus. The pills rattle the container when I shake it casually in front of her.
They're nothing to worry about. They're just vitamins. Vitamins, Bella.
Well, he should have said it's none of your business.
You know, the usual maintenance stuff. Can't be too careful these days, especially with how erratic the weather has been lately. Actually, I did come down with something last week. Forgot to tell you guys about it. Got me a little worried I wouldn't be able to make it in my own movie premiere. Good thing the virus or whatever it is left days before we're supposed to meet, huh? Although I think it's decided to come back for another round.
Zach, you aren't really sick, are you?
Oh, there goes that excuse.
You're the nicest guy I know around, but you're an even worse liar than I am. I understand it's not a habit, but even I can tell when something's bothering
Well,
you.
what's bothering you? You didn't tell me what happened last night.
You have no idea how many times I've been told that.
You got some nerve. She shifts her attention to her hand, two fingers clasped firmly together at the hem of her shirt. Instead of the usual grin I'm expecting from her, she draws a frown, her lips pressing tightly together in a slight grimace. Seems like she wants to ask more beyond what I'm willing to tell, but simply can't phrase it. I can't tell if the sudden inquisitive, curious nature has been a part of her from the start, and she has merely spent too much time around Rebecca and Ash. When she looks up, however, the question doesn't come. There's only a smile, too, reassuring to be genuine on her face.
Can you tell me one thing at least about this and that thing when we ate lunch the other day? It isn't just about what happened to your movie now anymore, is it?
No, it ain't. That was never it in the first place.
Just a simple statement of the fact. This much I can answer with all honesty. She nods then, her conflicted expression melting into something more pensive. This is her concession.
I understand. I'm sorry if that came off a bit pushy.
Nah, you're just a bitch.
I appreciate it. I really do, Bella.
And you're an
There's
idiot.
some things that are harder to talk about.
She's really dense.
Even we're longtime friends.
I get you, or at least I think I do. I'm not going to pretend I could help and tell you it's gonna be okay. I know it's never that easy. But I'm here for you if you need someone to listen, Zach. You know that, right?
Why is she acting all brave now? You know, you still haven't shared what happened to you last
I
night.
could say the same thing about you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for you if you want to tell me about what happened yesterday. You were pretty shaken.
A laughter, almost bitter and likely a little harsh, slips out of from me. Completely unintentional on my part, perhaps even the medication talking, but the words have already been said, the damage done, leaving only enough room for regret. Still, she doesn't flinch. She only looks a bit torn, with her mouth opening and closing in silent indecision. In the end, she settles for a deep breath, the release slow and steady as if letting out the heaviness weighing on her. When she looks up at me, something, a small, unfamiliar, barely noticeable thing slips by. As for what, it's impossible for me to tell.
I'll tell you. I promise I'll tell you. But not right now. Not when I need to make sure of something first. Please understand. Ever since I came here, other people, you guys, have always been helping me. You, Ash, Becca, even the job I have. I only got it because my aunt helped. I don't want to repay any of that kindness by dragging other people into more trouble than necessary. I just want to try and fix this myself.
I should be happy. There should be pride in that despite the problems. She has found herself a stable ground to stand on. But somehow, this time, I find myself worrying instead. I'll make another attempt to get the story out of her if I can. But this is a dance I know all too well, and with her, I doubt forcing her to say something would yield any results. As much as I want to imitate Ash, there's only so much I can ask that won't result in something a little over disastrous. At best, she'll stop talking to me until a week passes. At worst, I'd rather not risk it. Never seen her angry. Fuck her. She's in your apartment. Outright annoyed, maybe, and often directed at Ash, but never furious. What did they say again about happiest people when angered? Besides, it would be unfair to her after our little chat.
So, food then?
She seems relieved at the brisk change of subject, and as if it has simply waiting for its cue all this time, her stomach rumbles at the mention of food. Rather loudly, as a matter of fact.
Alrighty, Missy. We're going to get some chow now. Better be quick, though. Can't have your stomach starting a revolution on us here.
Don't make fun of me. I'm not that hungry. Maybe a little. I didn't think I'd end up skipping dinner last night.
And now we have one starved stomach protesting. Sorry it'll be nothing fancy, since I'm a little low on stocks. I should probably drop by the grocery store after the meeting this afternoon.
I can make a quick run for you if you want.
Nah, I've got enough to put together something nice here. Maybe. I could always improvise if we're missing an ingredient or two. It ain't like we're going for a Michelin 3-star status here. Also, didn't I say you're a guest? Is this a Filipino thing? Or just Rebecca
my
rubbing
God.
off on you?
He's racist himself. Why would he even mention that? That doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a racist world. The soft laughter that comes from her doesn't quite reach her eyes. Neither. The answer is neither. Because if she stares idle, she'll remember.
On second thought, I might need a little help slicing up the potatoes while I prep the ham. You up for that?
What? Do you think instant noodles are all I'm about?
Yeah?
I'll have you know, I can cook a mean paella with my eyes closed.
Paella.
All my siblings love it.
Sure you can. Come on. I think I know what we'll do with those spare ingredients.
Despite the massive effort to keep the mood light with small chatter, cooking ends up being a mostly quiet affair. Isabella saw Zachary taking an unknown medication and concerned asked what it is for. Not yet ready to reveal his painful past, Zachary played it off, saying they're just vitamins. Isabella didn't believe him, but I didn't push the matter further. To lighten the mood, the two decided to cook breakfast afterwards. Between us, the consistent clapping of the knife against the board and the muffled noise from the television I left running, words have become surprisingly difficult to string together. Not entirely unusual. We've had moments like this before, but definitely unnerving with how things are now. I really wish someone else will come knocking at the door. As pleasant as this is, breaking the ice or keeping a conversation going has never been my forte. That has always been Isabella's or Rebecca's department. Sometimes Ash's, although most coming from him border or awkward. What? A border on awkward or embarrassing. Speaking of the guy, he never did call back. And I'm willing to bet my entire yearly salary that he fell right back to sleep after the call. Oops.
Sorry, Bella. Could you...
Yep, I got it. The potatoes are almost ready, by the way. I turned down the heat just in case. You might want to check on them, though. Hold on, I'll be right there. Sheesh, wait up. If you keep rapping at the door like that, you'll break it down. Ash.
Oh, good. You're awake.
Ash has already welcomed himself in when I take my eyes away from the oven. I thought he would just open the door. He's never been really keen with the notion of courtesies after he's warmed up to you, this guy. All 13 of my locks he broke. Can attest to that. What? So he would break the locks to come in. So it's not that he didn't lock the door, it's like Ash would break the locks. And he works for what? He's a private investigator, or he works for the police department? Something? This is just so odd. He's a criminal. He's a good fellow, though. Wow, really? Maybe a tad bit standoffish at first glance, but he's trustworthy.
Don't you have work today?
I could ask the same of you. Hey, Z-Man.
You're late. Something came up? You need to drop the Z-Man. It's getting old.
Sorry, I got caught up with something at the precinct on the way here. Had to attend to that first before things got out of hand. I'd tell you about it, but you know how it can be with those kinds of things. Later, maybe.
And you're here because...
What? I'm not allowed to say hello?
I doubt you're here because of that. And you're not answering my question.
Ah, my bad. Forgot to mention that. He called earlier looking for you. Rebecca's worried because you didn't come home last night.
You could have called my cell instead.
You weren't picking up. Anyway, I'd really hate to cut this little get-together short, but I need to be somewhere else. Come on, Isabella, let's get you home. I'll drop you off on the way.
Wait, we're going now?
He lightly claps a hand on her arm and begins ushering her out of the apartment, throwing a casual wave at me as they pass. Isabella, on the other hand, doesn't appear too fond of the idea. And sure enough, before they can even cross the threshold, she puts a firm foot down and force alone enough to halt them both and catch the taller man off guard. I mean, they're making food for her right now. Why is he forcing her to go? It would have made for a funny picture, the way Ash almost crashes into her, and Isabella giving him an indignant pout over her shoulder. Surprise and confusion are all in his face at once, two things that rarely ever grace it if he can help it. A rare moment, even for a small group. If only I have my camera with me. Dang, sitting right there.
What is it?
Zach cooked something.
If it's just food, I'll get you something on the way back.
But the food! It's Zach's cooking! Real delicious food that actually tastes like food. At least stay and have a bite. Please? Zach, help me here!
These two, whenever they're in the room, sometimes it feels like herding a group of unruly kids instead of talking to two mature adults. One moment, they're engaged in pleasant chit-chat, and the next, they're bickering over a minor issue. Frankly, if I didn't know any better and I have an overreactive imagination, I'd say there's something going on. Yep, but, you know, we have learned that Becca actually has an interest in him too. Never mind how utterly impossible that idea is. Or it might just be me reading too much into things like always. I can already hear Ash's laughter if I so much as suggest such. You guys are friends. You can ask him if he's interested in her. I cooked up a feast.
I don't know about you two, but I think you guys should really stay. I've already made enough food for all of us.
Well, it's a
It'd be
plus of
waste. Why, I cooked up that special honey glazed ham you two keep on yapping about.
Yeah.
Got some scalloped potatoes with onions and cheddar to go with it too.
The oven timer dings. I shoot the two of them an apologetic look before sauntering over to the kitchen. Mittens in hand, the sweet smell of glaze and salty tang of melted cheese wafts through the air as soon as I open the door and take out the two trays inside. The scent immediately fills the entire room, and even with the door and windows open, the mouth-watering aroma lingers. It's appealing enough that when I put the dishes down on the counter, another starved stomach protests loudly, followed by a burst of laughter. My head snaps up at the two of them, and I can't keep back the smile at the sight they make. Isabella is clinging to the doorframe for support, doubled over with breathless laughter. Ash is the more composed of the two, trying to look unconcerned, but a flush has crept up his neck and cheeks. It's clear whose stomach that came from, and Isabella is not going to let him live this down.
You're in no place to reject an offer of free food, Frey.
I wasn't rejecting anything. Damn it, I just missed a meal, that's all.
Aw, he's flustered.
Shut it! Those guys at the precinct said it was urgent. Somebody has to be responsible for it.
Well, aren't you precious?
Right. You know, if you keep laughing like that, you'll burst.
I'm sure it won't be as bad as your stomach suddenly rumbling like a starved.
Alright, kiddos, play nice. Food's gonna get cold if we keep this up. Ash, you gonna stay?
Might as well, since Scaredy Cat's so hell-bent on staying.
A hearty meal. We eventually settle down after the food has been served. The jibes replaced by another round of friendly chatter. Look at all the oh god. The stains around their mouths. Oh god, these guys, they eat like pigs. Mostly about what's on the news the night before. There is, however, a conscious effort to avoid mentioning what's currently on the headlines. The dead is never a good topic to talk over food and polite company. 'Cause this case in particular, the wounds are too fresh, too soon. I'd likely avoid it as... Whoa, oh, 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 oh. I'd likely avoid it as well if I were in her position. And someone I personally knew passed away in a gruesome manner like that. Though perhaps the closest we got to broaching the topic is when the infamous mention is brought up again. But even then, we are careful, Ash and I. We keep the conversation light and avoid bringing up her late business partner. That's the least we could do. Let me just get ice for this drink.
The Wrights? Yeah, they're planning to move in soon. In fact, they already have a housewarming party planned. It's why they wanted us to rush the papers. They wanted to send the invitations out as soon as possible.
Oh, now I get it.
Get what?
Remember what I told you last night about the new clients?
Vaguely? Sorry, I was a little out of it yesterday. Was it the photo shoot?
Yep, it's actually for the one you sold. Something. When you put it that way, I suppose it makes sense why my boss wants me to prioritize the couple. They can have those documents rushed at just the snap of their fingers. And they're more influential than I initially thought. And I guess my boss is expecting a lot more from this project than I expected. Hope I can live up to it.
Your photographs are more than good enough, Zach. You'd probably win an international award if you let yourself. Ma'am Hana's easy to please, too.
Ma'am
As long
Hana.
as you're good at following instructions.
What? Ma'am Hana? You mean Madam Hannah?
Easier said than done. Different clients have different tastes after all.
Still, a week? I don't think that's possible.
Now that you mentioned it, yeah. They wanted everything finished at the earliest. To be honest, it's not unheard of, but
But it's still weird. Still weird, yeah?
Oh, you can't say fishy? The slip of the tongue. Still barely noticeable to someone who's already familiar with Ash's ways. Yet in this moment, it's impossible to miss. Well, you can say if something's fishy. Well, what's wrong with that? I shoot him a curious glance, but he ignores it. Rather pointedly.
I can't exactly say it's like that. Where I'm just the middleman after all. As much as I want to comment on it, I only know what's on the surface, not the in and outs. It's just that BRC and my boss are more hands-on with the legal stuff this time, despite having a separate department dedicated to it.
Maybe Mr. Wright helped with it too. They have their own legal team for this, don't they?
Well, they should have one. Especially for a big property like this.
They have, but like I said, it's off our hands. Rose and I don't handle this stuff in the office. If anything, to me, this just means I'll be able to send the rest of the funds to Papa's treatment earlier.
I guess that makes a whole lot of sense. Officially off our instant noodle diet, aren't we?
Ash, has anyone ever told you that you have an uncanny way of ruining the mood?
What? I was just saying. A few more months of stuffing your face with those, and I'm sure you'll start to look like a noodle cup. That's a pretty picture.
At least I don't live off convenience store food. Or make poor unassuming pressure cookers explode.
What? How did you... Oh, come on, Zach.
Sorry, it just came up while we were cooking earlier.
I'm impressed, Ashton Frey. You even made it to the news.
A one-time thing. And it wasn't as big as you seem to be imagining.
Oh, sure. Let's all pretend that one time you almost set my apartment on fire didn't happen too.
Hey, that was an accident.
You were making a salad, Ash.
Can we please move on to a different topic?
It helps. The casual talk, the harmless teasing. But it's not harmless to her, as she's very sensitive. The mundane stories, interesting enough to let time pass unnoticed. By the time lunch ends, the shadows are no longer at the forefront of my mind. If it's the same for Isabella, for whatever troubles her, I can never tell. These things, the anxiety, the fear, they ain't easily seen, ain't easily forgotten, after all.
You go on ahead. I've got a few things I need to ask Zach. I'll be downstairs in a minute.
Confusion briefly flashes in her eyes as she catches the keys he tosses over. But he doesn't give her an answer, and waits for her to go ahead.
How sure are you I won't be driving away with your Shirley?
You don't
Shirley?
even have a license. Do you even know how to?
Papa taught me how. I'm probably a better driver
Papa
than
this,
you.
Papa that.
See you later, Zach. Thanks for the food.
Always has to have the last word, don't you?
You're welcome. I'll send you the recipe for the potatoes tonight.
A grin is back on her face when she leaves and closes the door behind her. For a little while after we are left alone, Ash goes wholly quiet, listening, waiting for her remaining footsteps in the hall to fade. The earlier amusement is gone from his face, replaced by what I can only describe as trepidation. I know that look too well, all too well. When he's like this, he's expecting shit about to go down at some point.
That wasn't very nice, Ash. What was that with Isabella earlier? You're usually subtler with your questions.
They hired you.
Hired me who? Don't change the subject yet. What's really going on here?
The Wrights. Luke and Hannah Wright. You said your next gig is with them.
Is that what this is all about?
Just be careful around them. You have no idea what you're dealing with when it comes to that couple. I'd rather you stay as far away from them as possible, but you're already here. Isabella's their real estate agent. Seriously, of all the people in Luxburn.
Okay. I guess I'll just have to take your word for it.
He nods, claps a comforting hand on my back, and turns to leave without another word. He's never been good with those. More often he fumbles with what he wants to say, but his actions alone are enough to tell me how grateful he is for the trust. He reaches for the knob as soon as he gets to the door, but doesn't turn it. Instead, he looks back and gestures with his head towards the table. I don't need to follow his line of sight to know what he's talking he's going to ask about. He's likely taken notice of it the moment he entered the room. Why doesn't he put that in his drawer or something?
You back on those? I haven't seen you taking them in a year.
Oh, he's seen them before.
Yeah, I kinda had to. It got worse after the film fest. The dreams, that is. I don't think I'll be doing that again anytime soon.
Heard about that. Don't drop it, though. You don't want Becca scolding you. She actually enjoyed the movie you made, and she's hard to please. Consider that a small victory.
You don't have to tell me. She already did. Rebecca and Bella both gave me an earful after I said the opposite. Promised them I wouldn't, but you can never tell. Hopefully, once I feel better, I'll be able to think about it properly. Speaking of Bella, she didn't open up to me, but maybe with you and Rebecca.
Yeah, I'll try. I can't promise anything, but I'll talk to her.
Thanks. That's all I'm asking.
This time, when he reaches for the door, he lets it close fully behind him without glancing back. A mild draft sweeps into the room as I close the door behind him, slightly disturbing the papers on the nearby fridge. Ashton arrived to fetch Isabella hours later, but she didn't want to leave after all the food they prepared. In the end, Ashton acquiesced and stayed. The Wrights and Zach's upcoming gig were the few topics touched during their talk over breakfast. A lone note flutters by my feet, the letters on the surface glaring at me with mute intensity. Ermengarde Mansion, H. Wright, 11 a.m. For luxury living. After Ashton's warnings, they all hold a different meaning now. The next 2 days rush by in a blur, altogether leaving a collective mess of work suddenly piling up and new unexpected acquaintances or friends. Depends on how you look at it, really. Either way, I'm stuck developing these photos at 3 in the morning to reach a deadline set by an overeager art director. Don't get me wrong, Julius is good, has a vision, and knows what he wants, but damn, he can be too enthusiastic sometimes.
Doesn't matter when you couldn't sleep anyway.
There's nothing new in it, of course. After years of working as a freelance photographer, it's simply something I've grown used to. Get to know people, build a client base, do good work and cash in some late hours if need be. Rinse and repeat. It certainly takes a while to get some footing on the field, but it's the kind of thing that pays off in the long run as long as you keep at it. Given enough time, you might end up with big names on your client list. Names like the Wrights, in particular. I never did pay much attention to them, but it's virtually impossible not to hear about them when the local newspaper, channel, or paper has something to say on their name. A party here, an acquisition there. Sometimes it's a new business venture, other times it's the everyday gossip that typically follows popular people like them. Not in a million years did I imagine I would end up working for such a high-profile couple. And between that and the fuss that comes with, it leaves me no time to ponder over what happened to Isabella and why Ash is so adamant we keep away from the pair.
They do seem like the good folk, though, despite the whole fame thing.
Sure, there was a rumor running around years ago about him being involved in some business scandal. But just like every rumor blown out of proportion by the media, nothing came of it. And eventually, it simply died down. Much is definitely left to be said for the husband, but I doubt a woman like Mrs. Wright would pick him if he doesn't have any good points at all. Miss Wright, Hannah herself, though. She ain't particularly bad the way the press makes her out to be. A bit too forward for a married woman, maybe, but not as bad as what's on the tabloids. Not that I ever read those. Ashton would give me flack for just staring at one. Rubbish, he called them once. I think he's just pissed because they often put the local police in a bad light. Although with a life as public as the Wrights, no wonder it's the woman who often gets the crappy end of the stick. I can't help but feel sorry for her. She's a real nice person when given the chance. Heck, she might have even ended up friends with Rebecca and Isabella too, if they weren't living worlds apart. Probably. The beep quickly pulls me back from my thoughts before my thoughts travel any further. In one practice motion, I carefully place the wet print I'm holding on the drying rack and amble over my makeshift dark room to get the last photos from the water bath. Inside the converted broom closet, the film processor lets out another soft clack before going on its standby mode. At its mouth, a lone photograph sits on the tray, barely visible with the lack of light. It's the last one tonight for the set Mrs. Wright requested. I don't usually make this a habit, giving away stuff, that is. It's bad for the business, no matter how well-intentioned or generous you are. This exception, however, she was nice enough to ask, after all, and was a good companion up until the awkward turn our little chit-chat has taken. Even if she didn't ask, I would have probably given her a few prints just for the hell of it. Mrs. Wright ain't such a bad subject matter to begin with. Maybe this is just me, but for someone who has everything at the palm of her hands, all the money in the world, a loving husband, and a plenty big mansion to call home, she's lonely. She doesn't appear like it. She shows in the tone of her voice, how she moves, and most certainly in her smile. So she hasn't been touched in years. In 7 years. Always hidden behind the glamour for the world to never see. And then now she's pregnant with twins. It must be Harvey's fucking twins. Because Luke hasn't touched her in 7 years. He only fucked her like once during wedding night. Sometimes for people like her, small things like these helps. A little reminder that the world can be kind too. Water drips on the paper as I blindly pick it up and gently lay it on another tray holding a decent amount of photo flow. A few seconds in the solution is all it needs before it's ready for drying. No good rushing this last one, even if my body's already screaming for some decent snooze. My hand fumbles for the light switch, moving towards it with familiarity, while I fish for a squeegee among the mess of tools on a drawer with the other. The bulb flickers twice before it glows, settles, and casts a soft light in the tiny space. When I glance back down, squeegee in hand, ready to finish the process and finally call it a night.
What on earth?
Oh God! Her head is gone. Blurred and distorted, beyond recognition, rather. The area completely smudged over, leaving no trace of the same sweet smile the good woman carried in all her previous prints.
Damn, that was too careless.
A common mistake to make, of course, if one is negligent enough to pick up a newly processed photo in the dark, like I apparently did. It has happened before, loads of times actually, but I still can't help but feel a small pang of frustration over one's mistake a newbie would likely make. With a sigh, I reach up for the switch again, intending to develop a new one from scratch.
It could pass off for one of those supernatural pictures they show on TV, though.
A memory clicks, one cursory thought in a sea of many, and a short yet indistinct second from the day before. I thought he saw something that day too.
It could pass off for one of those supernatural pictures they show on TV, though.
A glimpse is all I got, but it's enough to burn the image in my mind. There was a shadow. Oh Lord! No. A woman in her 20s or early 30s, maybe. How can you tell with all that blood and guts and everything else? But with how far her flesh alone has become, it's not possible to tell at first glance. The skin itself has already taken a sickly pale color, rotten in most parts, blood dripping from every open gash and lesion on her body. Bony hands grip Mrs. Wright's neck like a noose, staining the skin underneath with a vibrant shade of scarlet. Nothing but malice fills the gleam in her eyes.
Zachary.
Not for me, but for Mrs. Wright.
Zach, is something the matter?
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong. I just remembered something, that's all. Let's get back to the pictures. Can you move a bit more to the left, yeah?
The memory alone is enough to make me retch. Some of Hannah's shot from the photo shoot the day before came out distorted after Zachary developed them. He would have almost dismissed it as human error if he hadn't remembered a chilling memory from yesterday's shoot. I brushed it off then. A trick of the eye, I told myself, or a product of the heat. The weather has been unexpectedly warm recently, so it shouldn't be too surprising for such things to happen. And while blaming this on the usual fatigue, an overworked brain, the weather, or an amateur error on my part, it's far more convenient. It makes a whole lot of sense then that the small voice inside my head whispers. The same tiny voice that only makes itself known for something so foul. The same one that lent a curious ear to Isabella's worries about the mansion. And with each second I spend staring at this photograph, the murmurs in my head only grow louder against my ears. Let's show it to Hannah. Fuck Ash. I don't have an explanation for what I saw yesterday. Yet. But when you've been there, seen something enough to raise the hairs on the back of your neck, or leave you wanting to flee or hide, finding a more solid proof than a person's smudge-off face on a photo is the least of my concerns. Ashton will undoubtedly give me flack for saying that, or even considering Isabella's words and those silly tales about the place. The guy is a skeptic through and through. It will take more than my count for him to even give this a single thought. However, more than his opinion, it's Mrs. Wright I'm concerned about. Surely, she must have felt something if those shows on TV are to be believed. A touch of coldness in her neck, or maybe the feeling of being watched. That's what often happens, ain't it? Outside, the sun has yet to rise. I've still got a few hours before dawn. Good enough time to mull over how I'll go about warning her. Plenty of space to check if I'll get the same result if I redo the process again. The film processor hums back to life at my touch. The light switch gives out a soft click, and the darkness embraces the small closet again. Oh
now
God.
Those old legends don't sound so silly now.
Oh. In hindsight, this is a dumb idea. That is to say, rushing to a client I barely know's home first thing in the morning with news of a ghost lady potentially haunting their newly bought property. Oh, and there's a bunch of bizarre-looking pictures of Mrs. Hannah I've bought as proof, too. So yeah, dumbest idea in the history of dumb ideas, all things considered. But you know, she really likes you. She wants to do the nasty with you, so I wouldn't be too worried. Traveling to the outskirts of Anselm Village at the crack of dawn with only my bike as company, equally so. What? He's riding a bike? He doesn't have a car? Personally, I don't think any of them would take whatever I'm going to say well, no matter how nice or accommodating they are. Ashton himself would tell me the same thing. Odds are, he'll laugh at it in my face for good measure, if he doesn't freak out at me first for not listening to his warnings. Still, that's a whole separate can of worms I'll open at a different time, seeing as if I'm already standing at the Wright's front porch, waiting for someone to answer the door. More than anything, Mrs. Wrights need to know there's possibly nothing safe in this place. Warnings from friends be damned.
If only someone would answer the door sooner. Come on.
I tried to ignore the looming presence their large ornate doors give off as I pressed the doorbell for the fourth time. Its shrill ringing merely echoes, carried off by another warm passing breeze. The first time I came to this place, I found myself basking in the silence it offers. Now the atmosphere is just heavy, packed with trepidation and tension. Isabella's right, it does radiate the creepy kind of vibe. And with the image from the day before constantly flashing in my mind, the unease becomes harder to ignore as each second drifts by. Not wanting to spend more time here than necessary, I ring the bell again. And then a long second ticks by without anyone answering the door. If this fails, I can always go to Ash. Not really the most sensible course of action either, but waiting here ain't doing me any good. For all I know, the Wrights could be out of town. As luck would have it, just as I'm about to turn on my heel, a loud thump rises from the other side. It's followed by a heavy footfalls and a string of very colorful expletives about one's parentage. Irish giantess. The door swings open and a very irate Mr. Wright greets me. His partly rumpled appearance, a clear testament to how early the hour is.
And who might you be? I don't recall asking the movers to show up this early.
I was prepared to face Mrs. Wright, their butler, more so. But Mr. Wright, I don't quite know what to make of him yet. I only caught sight of him yesterday as he's directing the movers. Although now, from how exasperated he sounded then, it seemed like more yelling was done than actual giving out directions. Needless to say, I'd like to believe those instances ain't all there is to the guy. Mrs. Wright, at the end of the day, did marry him. Standing before him like now, though, is a different story altogether. Despite the difference in our respective heights, he manages to make it appear like he is the one looking down at me, not the other way around. An apology instinctively forms in my mouth before anything else, when he arches an eyebrow at my lack of response.
Well, that's not exactly why I'm here, Mr. Wright, yeah?
Right, of course, the one and only. And what can I do for you this fine morning? Have I seen you somewhere before? Bloody peasants all look the same to me.
Yeah, I'm actually...
It doesn't matter, I don't care. I've got someplace important to be at today. Just spit out what you want or be gone. I haven't got all day.
His eyes are sharp and expecting, in spite of his indifferent tone. The very impression of someone whose sharp wits has served him well throughout life. The kind you have to carefully choose your words around. Disconcerting how a simple conversation can easily seem like ruthless form of social maneuvering. I can see why Mrs. Wright would want to steer clear of it, if only for a short while. And sometimes the only way out of the game is to be honest. I'm a friend of Hana. Let's do that, make him jealous.
Sorry, sir. I was just... You see, I'm a friend of Hana, and...
A friend of Hana?
Yes, sir.
His eyebrows shoot into his hairline at my answer. although it swiftly disappears under his dismissive gesture and a chuckle at its heels. A small frown spreads across my face before I can stop myself. What I said has nothing remotely funny in it, yet here he is, hugging an arm closer to himself in a weak attempt to keep his shoulders from shaking.
Did I mispronounce something wrong? Or?
No, not at all. You didn't. My wife, has never mentioned a friend like you. That's all. I suppose it's a good thing she's venturing out of the usual. Vultures and savages, all of them hiding under sheep's clothing.
I don't really get it, sir, but it's not really surprising she wouldn't talk about me. We just met yesterday during the shoot.
As soon as the statement is out, the amicable air melts away almost palpably. His eyebrows crease into a frown, and his posture stiffens. With how fast the atmosphere around us changes in merely the span of a few spoken words, I'm not sure what I can or can't say anymore. Like handling a ticking time bomb. Is this why Ashton wants us to stay away from them? If so, a part of me regrets not listening to him now.
Shoot. Who are you again?
Zachary Steele, sir. I was here yesterday from the magazine feature about your home.
Ah, that Zachary, the photographer. I remember now. Just when you think she'd be careful meddling around media types these days, she makes friends with one.
It was really just small chit-chat, sir. The usual. To keep things entertaining. The shoot did take the whole afternoon to finish.
Oh, I'm sure she was pleasantly entertained. She wouldn't be making friends with media types if she wasn't. No matter. She's her own.
Don't barge in like
She can
that,
do what
Yosh.
she wants so long as she doesn't do anything to ruin herself.
You need to go pee-pee outside. Huh? Are you okay? Go pee-pee outside. What's going on with you? Go pee-pee outside.
I'm sure Miss Wright is aware of that, sir.
That she is. But we aren't here to talk about her, are we? What is this about today? The city's a long way from here. On push bike, no less.
I was actually hoping to talk to her.
Of course. Here for another headline, perhaps.
Not exactly, sir. I'm off work. This is for something else.
That's what they always say. The next thing you know, your face is in the front page of every conceivable scandal sheet going all the way to the ass end of Plymouth. You media types have such an insatiable taste for gossip. It's almost amazing.
There won't be any of that in an interior design magazine, sir. I can assure you that one.
Oh, you never know. Well-trained hounds have an uncanny way of sniffing out things no matter where you keep them. I do admire the passion, though. It takes a lot of energy for someone to leave bed this early, let alone knock at someone else's door at this hour. That aside, unfortunately, you're going to have to come back some other day. You see, darling wife left not a moment ago. I have not an inkling where she went, or when she'll be back, so you're better off.
Love is at the movies.
He stops speaking altogether, and the complacent expression he has collapses on itself. Slowly, he turns just as his wife walks up to him with a step too lively for comfort, a smile too sweet, to be honest. She's very likely heard everything her husband and I have talked about.
Going off somewhere.
I've got the few things I want them to transfer already. Marianne made this splendid arrangement for the music room and... Love, are you listening?
I thought you already left, Buttercup.
She musters a frown, a pout more like. The mischievous gleam in her eyes when she glances at me says all there's I need to know. I would have laughed at her antics. Oops. If it wouldn't offend the other man. But as it is, it's better to let his wife have her fun without any reaction from me. I'm treading on dangerous grounds with him already.
Well, I most certainly have not left yet. I wouldn't be standing here if I did, would I?
Of course you wouldn't be, darling. But don't you need to be somewhere else today? Something with Marianne? Shopping, girl, things?
Oh, I'll be leaving in a few. Unless you want to join us.
No thanks, darling. I'm afraid my liver, it's killing me today. Ooh!
I thought as much. You needn't have to worry. I'll be gone in a few. It's just that I heard we have a visitor. What kind of person would I be if I didn't greet him before leaving?
A very gracious one, I'm sure.
Zachary, right? Zach? It's a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise, ma'am. I was actually looking for you.
Is that so? What for?
A huge display of unprofessionalism is what it's for.
Shush, darling. Let the man speak. I'm sure it isn't anything like that if he has to come all the way here, yes?
It's about yesterday. The photos you asked, I mean. The copies are ready, but...
My hand stills as I'm about to fish the prints out of my pocket. A short second passes, that which strikes me how I didn't think this through at all. How I'll go about telling her regarding the strange photos, or revealing this to her in the presence of another person. Her husband gazing over us like a hawk doesn't provide any sort of comfort either. And just like that, all the words I have been practicing to say on the way here inevitably fall stiffly on my mouth. Mrs. Wright must have noticed my hesitance, because shortly she gives her husband's arm a gentle squeeze, a tender smile gracing her face. Unlike the first, this one is meant to appease.
Love, I think Hansi might need some of your input for the final guest list. Could you check on him, please?
Bollocks! Why in all Luxborn do I have to be there? Doing tedious jobs on what he's being paid for?
Because if we end up with people whose faces you do not want to show up in our housewarming party, we won't be hearing the end of it. Unless a heavy dose of liquor's involved. You know what the doctor said about that. Please do poor Hansi and your liver a favor, hmm?
He can handle that on his own, Buttercup. And my liver is doing just fine.
I'm sure it is. But I don't know, love. I think I caught a glimpse of the name Mitch Lakes, was it? I think it was Mitch Lakes on it when I checked with Hansi earlier. You should see for yourself. It was quite a list.
Who put that blighted twat in there?
And that's why I'm asking you to look over it before I do so tonight.
Very well.
But even with that promise, he doesn't appear ready to leave. Short of passing through their doors, he stops and glances back at me. All without bothering to hide the distrust in his eyes.
Luke, dear, I'll be fine. Go back to your butler. I'm not some pregnant wife you have to worry about.
But you are oh, what a minute.
Fine, fine. I have to go to that little ankle biter's career day later anyway. I don't see why I have to go there. Kylie's your goddaughter.
And yet, she has you around her little fingers, darling. That's basically the same thing.
If he ever has an answer to that, we don't get to hear it above the heavy thud the door makes, and Mrs. Wright's own weary exhale after she's sure her husband is out of earshot. She's nothing but apologetic when she fixes her gaze back to me, and I can't help but return the same to her.
I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. My husband can be a bit trying when he really applied himself.
It's fine, Miss Wright. No harm done. It was my fault for showing up here unannounced. And this might be strange coming from me, but he does have the right to be wary. The press can be quite vicious when it wants to be.
Caught unexpectedly, they'll pick you apart. It's not surprising why he acted the way he did around me.
Sweetie, if Luke treats every journalist who shows up here like that, I'm afraid we'll end up with a harassment lawsuit hanging over our heads sometime in the future. Vicious or not, some sort of finesse has to be exercised when dealing with them. I'm sorry, I hope that wasn't too offensive.
Not at all, Miss Wright. Besides, I don't think an interior design magazine would be interested in who harassed who this week. Unless it has something to do with fighting over tastefully arranged furniture. But even then, I don't think our readers will be too interested.
Oh, dearie. You've got a lot to learn. You really have no idea how a single tassel can ignite a spark in a crowd. Of course, at the end of the day, it's still the thought that counts. It's still a lovely anniversary gift from my husband. No matter. Let's just go.
She doesn't wait for an answer and immediately wanders over a car parked some distance from us. Unsure, I find myself trailing after her. A chauffeur automatically opens the passenger side door as she nears, and she gestures for me to follow when she climbs into the back seat.
To... where are we going exactly?
I need to get out of this stuffy house for a while. Moving in, planning the party. It's starting to get suffocating in there. Luke and Hansi can have their fun while I'm gone. I don't care. I'm getting out because I can. Another minute in there and I'll drown.
My bike.
There are, of course, a lot of things questionable about her invitation. Why she's asking a person she has only known for less than 2 days in the first place is one. How appropriate this is, being another. But the rest of it crashes the moment she shoots me an imploring look.
Please? I can have someone send it back to your address later. And it's just a trip to the city for some furniture, nothing more, I assure you. Marianne will be with us, and maybe you can tell me why you're here on the way.
Guess it wouldn't hurt. Might have to leave early, though.
Excellent, then. Hop in. That's what they often say, yes?
This can't be a good idea, but I really don't have any other choice, do I? Especially with the way her eyes light up when I agree to it. In my pocket, the very picture of her remains faceless. Why can't he just tell her that he has a concern before they go, you know? A voiceless shadow hanging threateningly over between us, unknown to her. If someone told me I'd be spending my entire morning being dragged around half of downtown Luxbourne looking for furniture, I probably would have simply smiled at them, and perhaps even give them a good friendly pat on the shoulder and wish them a nice day. Oh, I missed that one. Not that I find anything wrong with this at all. On the contrary, this is most definitely a nice change of pace after weeks of getting bogged down by several freelance gigs and shutting myself inside my apartment whenever I can. Disturbed, Zachary decided to show the photographs to Hannah herself. He was greeted by a wary Luke Wright upon arriving at the mansion. Just in time, Hannah appeared to save Zachary from further interrogation. At her request, Zach accompanied her to Luxbourne City. If only the weather would be a lot nicer, the kind with less sun and more clouds, perhaps. With the mid-morning sun slowly beating down on us as high noon approaches, I can see why Mr. Wright skipped out on this trip. The bright side is, the whole thing seems to have put Mrs. Wright in a less somber mood. After the 5th store, her pace is considerably livelier, her gestures less guarded than the one she displayed at the mansion earlier. The presence of another person might have helped as well, although Miss McCulloch seems less predisposed to small talk, preferring to keep to herself most of the time and let Mrs. Wright lead us wherever. She did acknowledge me with a small nod when we were introduced earlier, but that didn't make standing outside the store together any less awkward while we wait for our client to finish her inquiry inside.
So, interior design, huh?
She cast me a sidelong glance before returning to her notes again, her pen scratching faintly against the paper in quick successive strokes. There goes that. I did say that I'm not any good at starting or keeping conversations going, didn't I? She doesn't look back up again, and I take that as my cue to stop any attempt of striking a dialogue with her and keep myself occupied with some other thing. Except what we have here is just Lexborn and its busy streets. People going about their day like normal, cars moving in and out of sight, heading to who knows where. Nothing remarkable, really. The ease with which a person can fade into the background here is reflective of the kind of city Lexborn will always be, but the humdrum is one thing I've learned to live with. Needless to say, it doesn't usually stay that way. There are times when it would come alive, make itself known, and reassert itself back to the world. However, those moments are few and far in between. Then again, with what graces the news channels lately, I'm starting to think it's going to happen sooner. Can't say I'm looking forward to what it'll bring.
Luxury living, is it?
Her voice effectively cuts through my thoughts, just as I counted 13th passerby wearing a hat today. Beside me, I can hear the faint rustling of paper and the clicking of her pen as she stashes them back to her bag.
Excuse me, what?
The magazine you're working for. It's Luxury Living, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. You've been featured by them before, I take it?
A few years back, yes. For just some issues. My designs still appear from time to time, though not as frequent as before. Gotta have room for new talents, right?
It may not show in her face, but the pride is evident in her voice.
Good folks, the people running the publication. Tell me, is DK still on the editorial team?
I wouldn't know. I've only started taking jobs from them this year. Freelancer, you know.
Good man, that guy. Anyone in our field should meet him. He had a lot of things to say about art, all of them relevant. Learned a lot from him, actually, even if we both came from two different fields. I hope he's in a good place. I haven't talked to him in a while. Anyway, your portfolio must have been good if they gave you the job. They don't easily assign big features to freelancers like this.
I wouldn't say I am, but experience, you know? That the more you practice it, the more you learn the tricks of the trade. That kind of stuff.
I know what you mean. Still, you've got to keep up with the competition. Each year, a new talent emerges, and, well, you never know. Clients can be a bit fickle-minded with their choices. Believe me. Speaking of, do you think you'd be up for a new client after this?
I think so. Depends on how big the project is.
She reaches into her bag again. This time to pull out a business card, which she hands over to me.
When you're free, send your portfolio to Chris. He's my assistant. He's been looking for a decent photographer to help with updating the studio's portfolio. Nothing urgent, but the sooner the better.
Not sure if I'll have the time to squeeze this in. but alright, I'll give it a go once.
Marianne, could you look this over for me?
At that very moment, Mrs. Wright emerges from the store. When I look back to Miss McCullough, a mask of professionalism has returned to her face. Or at least that is what it is trying to be. There's a different light in her eyes as she faces her, a flicker of familiarity and recognition. I said fondness, but that would be too presumptuous. Whatever it is doesn't last and is briskly swept under the firm tone her voice assumes.
Definitely. Is there a problem?
They said they don't have the colors you suggested. Do you think we can change it around for a bit? It might take a while if we insist what we want, and you know I'd rather not worry about this later.
I think it'd be better if I handle this one myself. Excuse me.
She walks into the shop without another word, leaving the two of us standing outside. As soon as she's out of earshot, however, Mrs. Wright lets out a giggle and swipes the business card cleanly off my hand. She smiles, a bemused little thing spreading across her face, and waves the card in front of me. I wish she'll do that more often, the smiling thing. It suits her more than the other one she frequently shows to the media.
I look away, and the next thing I know, you're picking up women. On the streets, while the sun is high, no less. I'm not sure if I should be appalled or amazed. Whatever happened to the Zach I met a day ago? About as tall as you. Photographer. Quite the gentleman. To tell you the truth, I'm a bit disappointed he's gone.
It ain't like that, Miss Wright. And I'm sure Miss McCullough's not the kind of woman to let herself be picked up by strangers, let alone people she barely knows.
Oh, shush. Let me have my fun. And didn't I say you can call me Hannah? This right after you introduced yourself as my friend in front of my husband. I do believe this isn't how friends address each other. Too formal, don't you think?
She gives the card back to me, nevertheless, and with it her mood fades into a more pensive one. An odd look settles on her face, yearning, a bit wistful, as she looks back towards the shop's display window. There's nothing more remotely interesting in it for me when I follow her line of sight, though. A few trinkets here and there, a fur rug, a sofa, a wooden side table, and a lamp, all tastefully picked and arranged to resemble a typical antique living room. On second thought, it does look comfortable, but why they added a crib beside it baffles me. Unless, of course, the people they're hoping to market to are those who are already have children, or about to have one, then maybe it is fitting. Peculiar choice of decorations aside, it does make for a nice icebreaker, if it's not on the same level of weird and completely out of the blue. It still leagues better than the awkward silence, which is definitely too out of character for a personality like Miss Hannah's. How should I start the conversation? I think that one looks cute.
Oh, I think that one looks cute.
Hannah balks, to my surprise, shuffling 2 steps away from the window and glares at it with such vehemence, as if it did something remotely scandalous. A funny sight when taken out of context, and I probably will be laughing, really, if I understand what warranted such reaction from her.
I wasn't looking at the crib.
I wasn't really talking about the crib, Hannah.
Very good then. But it wasn't the crib, all right.
Alright, I get you. But that's not it. Honest. I was just saying the stuff that was on display there looks nice. Or at least as nice as it can be compared to the ones we visited earlier. But I'm sure your interior designer has something different in mind for your mansion, so don't mind me.
I was hoping that would be enough to cut the topic short. Why is he not talking about the picture yet? Instead, she sighs, leans on the wall closest to her, and runs her hand through the lock of her hair. There is a far-flung look in her eyes, even as she fixes it on the concrete curb.
You need to stop looking at people like that, sweetie.
I'm afraid I don't quite catch your drift, ma'am.
I suppose you wouldn't be aware of it. Do you know you always carry this kind of phase? Like you're always staring at the world with this honest look. Like all there is to see is all the good in it.
Frankly, I don't see anything wrong if it's like that. I mean, there always has to be something in it. You know, a sprinkle of kindness here and there.
He's too naive.
Otherwise, we'd all be miserable.
For you, maybe. Some people have to fight through it just to see that. And kindness isn't always a great thing to have around. Sometimes too much of it can hurt.
It makes you wonder where this is coming from, how bad things have really gone for her to have this view. I do understand her sentiment, really, I do. Still, when it's the last thing you can cling to, when things have gone irreversibly bad, sometimes you simply don't get to make a choice.
Besides, the point is, it's impossible to lie when a person is looking at you like that. Or I could, but I'd feel like a horrible person afterwards. Did you hear that, Mr. Zack? You just made me feel like a horrible person. I sort of wish I had one like it. Just so people would stop lying to my face.
Or you can start by being honest with yourself. It shouldn't be quite hard. Friends don't lie to each other, don't they?
I guess so.
So what was the lie?
She draws in a breath, lays a soothing hand to her stomach,
That
and
it was really the crib I was looking at earlier, silly. You're right, Uncle Zack. It's cute, but the pattern's not to my taste. I'm pretty sure Marianne could do something about that, though. At the moment, what I should really be worried about is if I'm ever going to be a good mother to this child. Ned, I can't even tell the father he's going to be one in a few months' time. Probably doesn't even want anything to do with this whole pregnancy thing. What am I going to do, Zack? Because right now, I'm absolutely at a loss.
Oh.
a beat.
Oh!
Oh. The realization strikes me like a ton of bricks suddenly bearing down on me. More than astonishment must have shown in my face, because Hannah lets out a chuckle. The slump on her shoulders disappears altogether underneath her mirth.
Don't look so surprised, dearie. Tied the knot 7 years ago, remember? Don't you think it's bound to happen?
My only sunshine, it says. How is he even able to see the ring in this manner? She brandishes her hand in front of me, the unassuming silver band on her finger glinting against the late morning sunlight for a second. She eyes it lovingly, almost tenderly, despite the trace of sadness in her voice. For all I know, there's an entire story there, I'd ask. But that would be too inappropriate even for friends. It's not my place to meddle, to begin with.
Or at least that's what they've been saying early on. My whole social circle would be saying it's a long time coming.
But the kid is something you want, right? Because if it ain't, then that's a whole other problem.
Of course. I wouldn't deny I've been hoping to have him or her for a long time now. But then, now that we're here, all of a sudden, there are a whole lot of other things to be worried about. Business, a new home, public image, my own husband, and I don't know. I didn't really have anyone for a role model. I practically grew up with nursemaids pampering me every step of the way. What if it happens to this baby as well? Oh, I can already see how this will end.
Huh. I guess it's not just my sister.
What?
You and my sister. I mean, you're both having jitters or something like that. That's what it's called, right? First baby jitters? Mind you, she was really convinced she'd do everything wrong then. He even called me in the middle of the night. Asked to switch places the day she found out she's carrying a new member of the family. Never mind how utterly impossible her request is.
I'm quite sure I haven't done anything of that sort yet.
Oh, you don't know that? My brother-in-law has been telling me things 5 weeks into my sister's pregnancy. Said she's one cranky pregnant lady. Man, good thing I found a place for myself years before that bundle of joy arrived, huh?
It can't be that awful.
Who knows? I think we better leave it for Mr. Right to decide, yeah?
Provided he comes around. He just sounds so repulsed every time the idea is brought up.
Then maybe you should say it to his face. No mincing of words or beating around the bushes.
And if he says no?
You haven't even told him yet. Besides, that's his kid. And don't people usually say fatherhood changes men? I wouldn't call myself a living testament, of course. But there ought to be something that will hit him in that idea alone.
A wrecking ball would be nice.
Her laughter escapes me before I can stop it. And for a moment, I thought I have done something wrong when she doesn't join in. He's still her husband, no matter what jests or complaints she hurls about him behind the media's eyes, or in the presence of people she trusts. But when she does, her chuckle, a small, hesitant sound at first, I find the rest of my unease slipping away.
Well, whatever it is, my point is, you've got no idea what will happen. In the same way, you don't know if you'll be a good mom. Trust me, my sister's been there. Perfectly normal. If my opinion matters, though, trust me, my sister's been there. It's perfectly normal. If my opinion matters, though.
A long second of indecision goes by. I can feel her eyes, filled with nothing but curiosity, boring into me while she waits for the rest. It's just a simple sentiment, but one thing I think she needs to hear for all the doubts she unwittingly places on herself. I'm just not sure if it should come from me. I'll be damned.
I think you'll be a great mother, Hannah.
If she has an answer to that, I don't get to hear it, nor does she get to say it. As soon as it's out of my mouth, the bell hanging over the antique store's door chimes, and out comes Miss McCullough. For more than one reason, I have never been so relieved our talk got interrupted.
Everything's been taken care of for tomorrow, Mrs. Wright. We'll have everything you requested delivered early. I've left them instructions, but I may have to visit again right before your housewarming party to check for a few things. I hope that's acceptable to you.
More than Marianne. This is a little early to say, but you did marvelous work with the mansion. I can't wait to see all of it come together tomorrow.
I'm only doing my job, ma'am. Needless to say, it's always a pleasure to hear a client is satisfied with my work.
Nonsense! You have every reason to be proud. I know you've already established your name here, but I'll still make sure word gets out, of course. I think I've got a few friends who might be interested in decorating their homes. I'll see if I can introduce you to them tomorrow.
I really don't want to impose, Mrs. Wright. There's still a lot to be done, and I'd rather be keeping an eye on it myself.
You know well enough I'll still do it. You too, Monsieur Le Photographe. You better be the one taking the pictures for the event tomorrow, or I'll be very upset.
I blink at her, confused. Last I checked, I have nothing scheduled on my plate tomorrow. A couple of fleeting thoughts did cross my mind, like working on personal projects. But with the expectant expression on Hannah's face alone, I've wondered before how they got Isabella to sell them the mansion, with all the paperwork and the loops it has to go through. Well, now the how is already standing in front of me, and it's one giant ball of persuasion in human form. Actually, it's money. If I have any doubts how she got around life, all of them have been dispelled right this instant. She got around life because she got money, not because, she just happens to be all cute and shit. But that can only take you so far. She got cash. Hannah hasn't said anything yet, but I already know what my answer will be.
What event?
Our housewarming party, dearie. I've already sent invites through your publisher. They should have informed you of it by now.
I may have probably missed it. I haven't gotten the chance to check my mailbox yet. Deadlines, real life happenings, they can be pretty hectic. I'll try later, but they might have already assigned it to a different photographer if they haven't received my reply yet.
That's not a problem. Nothing a little call from me can't fix. I'll have them know I'm specifically requesting for your presence. It shouldn't be too hard. Just promise me you'll show up. I expect to see you both there. No excuses.
Good company, good music, good food. Of course I'll be there.
Lovely. I hope we have that settled then. I'd love to stay and chat, but unfortunately I have an appointment scheduled with the doctors after this.
Oh, that's how she found out that she got twins.
You two will have to excuse me.
Are you feeling fine, ma'am?
It's nothing big.
There's a short while in which her hand faintly touches her stomach when she says this. Her smile as she does so, a tender thing in itself. She might never let it cross her mind, but motherhood would suit her. The kid is already loved, even when he or she has yet to have a sense of the world. Candid moments like this, I wish I had brought the camera for.
Sorry we had to cut this short. I'd love to have lunch with you two, but, well, you two know how it goes.
It's quite fine, Mrs. Wright. I need to get going as well.
Is it somewhere far from here? I can have my driver drop you off on the way.
No, please. There's no need for that, Mrs. Wright. It's just within the city.
I see. What about you, Zach? We did leave your push bike at the mansion. Don't worry, I'll have someone bring it to your home later.
Nah, I live within the city too. A few blocks from here, in fact. I only visited earlier because...
The photos. Damn, I've completely forgotten about them. My hand grazes the side of my pocket where I've kept them since this morning. And sure enough, they're still there, waiting for the whole world to see them.
Because? Zach, sweetie, you're zoning out.
Miss Hannah, earlier, at the mansion.
Yeah, show her the photos. That's why we're here.
I think it would be better if you take a look at these yourself.
A minus, oh look at how, Jesus Christ, like it took half of her friendship meter, relationship meter off, just for showing her the photo. Seeing is believing, right? I reach into my pocket and pull out the photos, handing everything to her. Recognition flickers across her eyes when she reaches for them, and I have to stamp down the tiny twinge of regret in my stomach for having the gall to show it to her. Only it cuts deeper the instant both her and Miss McCulloch's expression changes. And it is not a good look. To say she's repulsed would be a total understatement. All this time, Hannah has been nothing but direct, saying what she feels, expressing what she wants. Away from the glamour and the camera lenses, she's a whole different person. But as she goes through each of the pictures, I can't get an easy read on her. Well, explain to her.
Zach, dearie, what is this?
Your photos. The ones you requested copies of. I mean, they came out that way and I thought you should know.
Oh, I get it. You know, I've heard before that artists can be a bit weird. Have you ever gotten that kind of comment, Marianne?
Not in my line of work, I'm afraid. Or ever, Mrs. Wright. I'd rather keep my personal hobbies away from my actual work. Less stress that way.
Well, I suppose it just never crossed my mind that the saying applies to you as well, Zach. But talent's what's important, hmm? As long as you make good art, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, that's... You see, when we had that photo shoot yesterday, there was something.
I wouldn't say I don't appreciate it. I did ask for copies, darling. But would it be possible for you to give me normal-looking ones? Preferably with my head intact. I admire the effort you took to edit this, though. It looks authentic. Frankly, if I show this to some other person, they'd probably believe those silly rumors about the mansion. Good publicity, but not the kind I'd want for my new home. So please.
She drops them back in my hands. Look at me, even Marianne doesn't look entertained by that. She drops them back in my hands like their very surface burn hers. You're trying,
If you could redo this, that would be wonderful. I'm positive you can do a better job than the one you just showed.
Explain yourself. Why?
Just try to keep the edits to a minimum,
Yeah. I can, sure.
He's an idiot.
You can take your time, of course. And speaking of time, I really must go.
She leaves without so much as a wave. I don't have to take a guess to know I've dismayed her, or in her own words, weirded her out. Besides me, McCullough shakes her head. Yoshi, I don't have anything here, sweetheart. Okay. You gotta wait a half hour. After I'm done streaming, Yoshi, you're gonna get your little treat. Come here. Another half hour, baby, okay? You gotta wait half an hour, my love. Oh, what a sweet little girl. Oh, what a sweet little girl. Oh, ho, ho, ho. What a sweetie. Oh, ho, 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 what a sweetie. Oh, ho, ho, what a sweetie. Everything looks good. You went pee-pee, right? And give you a little treat. That's it. Okay, you gotta wait half hour. Stop barging in here. Go away. That's it. That's all I got for you, babe. Go away. What are the odds of also ruining my chances with the job she offered earlier? Very high, I'd say. It's a foolish idea in the first place. Miss McCullough departs shortly after Miss Wright has taken her leave, muttering something about getting a quick lunch before fetching Berrutiel from Chris. At Luxbourne City, Zachary and Hannah met with Marianne McCullough while Marianne was busy. Hannah disclosed her pregnancy and her frustrations to Zach. At the end of their talk, Zachary showed her the photos, which earned the disapproval of both women. I mean, and it doesn't make any sense that they would just think of him that way. I mean, especially like Marianne. I mean, she knows. She should know better than that to assume that people would just do that. I don't know what or who Berrutiel is, but it must be important for her to be in this kind of a hurry. And well, she doesn't seem to be fond of small talks, something we both agree on, can both agree on. Lunch sounds good, or a walk around the city maybe, but with the sun as high as it is now, nah. And after how things with Miss Hannah went, I simply can't muster the appetite for anything at the moment. If I don't do anything with it now, I have this impression it will rear its ugly head again, and by then things might be too late to fix. What other choice do I have? Ash, Rebecca? In all likelihood, all they'll give me is a pat in the back and a Z-Man, go get some sleep. You're at it again from Ash. I'd like to I'd talk to Isabella, but I haven't seen her around since she showed up at my apartment 2 days ago. Weird. There's one person though.
Damn, I should have thought of that first.
As it turns out, I do have another choice. I'm not a religious person. I won't identify myself as such. Or rather, I can't. Sure, my grandparents didn't have to force me to go weekly. I'd happily join them. In fact, most of my childhood Sundays have been spent attending service. It's simply that as you get older, the more experiences you get, forming your own beliefs on things becomes easier, for the lack of a better word. And at one point, it just stopped, that kind of thing. Nevertheless, I hold no disdain for it. Sometimes it does help. When things are really, really bad, when the dreams won't stay where they should be. Talking does a bit. It's also a good thing Father Norman's, well, he's not completely the pious man you'd typically expect. My unlikely friendship only probably happened because he's the kind of guy who's cool with the young ones. Ugh. As he aptly puts, he shouldn't have said that. And he is, surprisingly. It makes him easy to approach. Maybe he has something to say about the photos as well. It won't hurt since I've already gone ahead and went to Anselm at daybreak on my bike. At the very least, I know I won't get shouted at by whoever answers the door.
Unless someone does that inside a church. I highly doubt it.
Despite its age, the Luxbourne Church is a thing of wonder in itself, with its highly vaulted ceilings and intricate stained glass windows. One of the many gifts the Ermengarde family donated to the community in its early days. Or so I heard from Rebecca. She mentioned this once, although most of it flew over my head then. At this time of the day, the church is mostly empty, save for a few visitors and ushers shuffling about, some muttering their prayers under their breath. The scene of burning candles and incense permeate the air, giving the place a general feeling of reverence. Pretty welcoming, all in all. Even so, I keep the noise my threads make to a minimum. Disturbing the quiet feels like a sin alone. An usher points me to a pew in front of the altar when asked where Father Norman prays. He mentions something about the good priest not being in good health. Ever since he was asked by a couple to bless their new home before moving in, this is the first time in days he's left his room. No surprising there. With the weird heat lately, even Rebecca caught something. Nervous little chap, the kid. Nevertheless, he leads me close to the foot of the dais with a reminder not to stay too long before walking off. Seconds later, Father shifts and stands. He doesn't seem to have noticed me, and I have to give him a little tap on the shoulder. When he looks up, though, to say he's surprised is an understatement.
Stay away.
His voice comes out a whisper, almost inaudible in the hush, a quiet restraint and deference to where we both are standing. But the tremor is there. He focuses on me with wide, bulging eyes, copious amount of sweat appearing on his forehead, despite the relative coolness of the place.
Father Norman? Keep your distance. Hey, it's me, Zach, remember?
Oh, it's Middle Mouse.
Stay away, don't come near me.
It must be the fever talking, or whatever you call it. It has to be. I don't recall ever doing anything for him to drive me away like this. In all the years I've known him, he's been nothing but polite, but accepting of people regardless of beliefs or status in life. For words akin to a threat to come out of him, it's simply beyond imaginable.
Go back to where you came from. Leave. Father, what did I do? Leave. No!
I extend a hand to his shoulder, meant to be reassuring, but he recoils, his ankle catching on the edge of the dais as he backs away. His shout, when I attempt to reach out again, echoes through the entire hall, catching the attention of a few people inside. I try to keep a level tone, but these strangers' eyes, trained on us, panic starts to weave its way into me.
Stay away, demon! Go back to the hell you came from! Father, it's okay. I only came here for some pictures I thought looked odd. I figured you might know something.
From my pocket, I fish out the photos and hand it to him. Instead, he strikes my wrist away, almost like an accusation, and sends the photographs fluttering uselessly to the floor. Helpless, I can only watch as he curls himself on the ground, a sad, blubbering mess whimpering to himself. He tips his head forward and begins rocking, his hands clapped over his ears.
That accursed spirit, so full of anger and pain. All those horrible things I've seen. I can't sleep, I can't eat everywhere I look. Go away, go away. Go away. You're not supposed to be here. This is a house of God. Be gone, demon. Lord have mercy, God our Lord, King of ages, all powerful and almighty. You who made everything and transform everything simply by your will.
A number of people have moved closer, mostly just the gawk. Disappointed because he wasn't able to accomplish his mission with Hannah, Zachary went to his friend, Father Norman, for advice. However, in an unexpected turn of events, the priest vehemently pushes Zach away, yelling curses and calling him a demon. Thankfully, as if to save him from being an utter spectacle, 2 ushers come out, taking him away. One of them, the kid from earlier, shoots me an apologetic look. I can't even return it to him. Anxiety is a powerful thing, a firm little notion that clings, eats, and consumes you. I can still hear his prayers even as they drag him away.
May he keep at bay and vanquish every evil power, every poison or malice invoked against us by corrupt and envious people. And then under the protection of your authority may we sing in gratitude.
It rings, hums in me, as I am left to pick up the pieces of this chaos. Back to square one we go. If there is salvation in this, I hope we find it soon. The moon is well into the sky, night sky, by the time I make it back home. My heavy threads and the sound of traffic outside echoing in my ears, filling the empty room with some semblance of life. Nana would scold me if she ever hears me walk like that. But after today, I really can't give a damn about everything. The mattress creaks under my weight as an unceremoniously flop the mattress creaks under my weight as I unceremoniously flop down on it, and I find myself looking at the paper under my grip. As promised, Mrs. Wright had my bike delivered back to my apartment. Found it parked in the rack downstairs, and with an invitation that had a note tacked to it, in fact. Be there, it said. If only it were that easy, but it'll give me a chance to talk to her about that thing in their house. With a sigh, I let my hand fall to the side of the bed along with the invitation. I'll think about it tomorrow, when my head ain't muddled with thoughts of a headless woman and the haunting smiles of a ghost. Belatedly, it occurs to me I haven't eaten anything since I left this morning, and an empty, gnawing ache makes itself known, but I can't help myself. I can't bring myself to stand up. Today was a complete waste of time, and frankly, a disappointment. I don't like this. The lack of certainty, the disquiet, the lack of stable ground to stand on, the part where I do not know what will come tomorrow. Ever since that damn letter, everything has been thrown out of the loop. I wish everything stayed the same. Routine would have been easier to make sense of than this. Closing my eyes, I let the noise from the streets below lull me to sleep. At the very least, that's the one thing that hasn't changed. The melody carries into the hall long before I cross the threshold. Solemn, but gentle and soothing, a reminder of what home is. Pa's firm but meaningful gaze, Ma's wistful smiles, the warm rays filtering through the eaves at sunset, the distinct smell of wet earth and leaves after a long day's rain, and our room, the room, Ma and Pa's pride and joy, a place we were once promised several springs ago. What? A place we were once promised several springs ago. Yet it won't stop.
No, wait! Come back! Oh my
Jesus
goodness,
Christ.
Tom! Please don't leave! Please stay!
The floorboards are cold under my feet, more than it usually is. The walls more foreboding than what I'm used to. Farther and farther the room goes. Ma's singing ceases and Pa. I can't hear Pa. Not above the raucous clanging and the deafening roar of gunshots, nor the screams replacing the comforting soft melodies. There's only the blinding fear. But when the light breaks, oh God, her skin has already taken a sickly pale color, rotten in most parts, blood dripping from every open gash and lesion on her body. Bony hands grip Hannah's neck like a noose, staining the skin underneath with a vibrant shade of scarlet. Nothing but malice fills the gleam in her eyes. A scream ripples through the air. My whole body feels distant. Oh shit. Every limb heavy with lead, all unable to move at will. Not even so I can wipe the beads of sweat forming at my temple. A rasping of my breath easily fills the room in the wee hours, while I force it back into a steady rhythm. There's a tightness in my chest I can't shake off, my heart pounding against it as if it's about to burst out. Something cold has settled in my legs. Not the usual chill that comes and goes with a passing breeze from the window, but one strong enough to sting, shackle, and leave a frigid sensation creeping up my skin. With every struggle I make, the pressure wins firmly around my legs. Tighter, and tighter, and tighter, and all until it becomes too much. My heart stops. Another draft sweeps into the room. What am I seeing anyway? Another draft sweeps into the room and brings with it the iron tang of blood, thick, suffocating, filling my nose with a foul, sickening smell. As I shift my gaze downwards and it slowly comes into view. Oh my God, my mouth stretched in a hideous smile and eyes brimming with nothing but madness. The stench of gore taints the air around me and I can't look away from it, from the terror and death that her uncanny, twisted features alone scream. I try to open my mouth, to shout, to ask for any help, but my voice has left my body altogether. All I have is the painful realization that no kind of plea will ever save me from her. Then suddenly the bed dips. Oh my God! The brutal plunge back into myself jerks me awake. There's no ear-splitting scream, no wild trashing of limbs. Just a painful, constricting awareness that something has wound itself tightly around my neck. I waste no time pulling it, a blanket. away, but allow myself a few minutes to steady my breathing before getting off the bed. Inhale, hold, exhale. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. But the dreams have gotten worse. Ever since 2 days ago, no longer are they the small cursory flashes I'm used to, but vivid ones that linger. I can still feel the blood in my hands, the putrid smell of rotting flesh, the sickening crunch of bones breaking with every movement, and her cold, chilling eyes as they bore into me. I draw in one long, ragged breath, and before I know it, I'm walking out the door. Even in the waking world, it reeks. A bench in the park is far from the most private place for thoughts in Luxborn, considering its location at the heart of the bustling city. But in the early hours of the morning, it provides enough peace and quiet for any poor problematic soul who happens to wander here. The city is just waking up, a little later than usual. But knowing what day it is, one can't fault it for being a little tardy just this once. Yet neither the pleasant morning chill nor the soft twittering of birds does anything to banish the images. Every single one has rooted itself in my head, its claws digging deep in what is no longer a safe place to hide in.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady.
It used to be easy, finding some pretense of peace under the guise of sheer optimism, following regular routine. Is this gonna keep going? Okay, good.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Take a key and lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. Take a key and lock him up, my fair lady. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. Take a key and lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. Take a key and lock him up, my fair lady.
Now? No, I don't know what to make of it. Sometimes it's easier to run, easier to have everything's falling apart. That way you don't have to be the first to witness it when it does. It worked when things went bad with the movie after all. Shut up, little girl. It also worked when Ma and Pa were taken from us. Though the sentiment's a little hypocritical when you think about my little talk with Miss Wright the other day. But that's just how it is. Maybe it's really better if I just... Oh my god. The tiny voice gives me a pause. When I look up, a little girl, maybe about 6 or 7, is peering at me. 2 wide eyes overflowing with what can only be the natural curiosity one typically sees in children. I vaguely note that St. Goretti uniform she's wearing before returning her greeting.
Hey kid.
Kylie,
Kylie?
that's my name.
Somebody needs to teach her about stranger danger.
Mama said it's rude not to call people by their names.
She then flops down on an empty space beside me. Jesus. Her little legs, still too short to touch the ground, swings in tune with a song she hums under her breath. I don't mind kids. Nana would often invite the ones in our old neighborhood to give them treats. Of course, by then Sis and I were both too old to play with them, but you get used to the commotion eventually. It's not completely as unpleasant as most people would imply. Yes, it is. Kylie seems to be a well-behaved kid, anyway.
Oh, sorry. Nice to meet you, Kylie. Is Mama here?
No, but my big brother's with me. He's taking pictures with his camera over there.
She points to the far end of the park, the one closest to the street where a kid is taking shots of something above him. So while your brother is going walking around the park taking pictures, you're gonna meet with a stranger and get yourself kidnapped. Got it. It doesn't look like it doesn't look to be birds because all there is on the other side of the park are buildings.
I don't see what's so interesting with the tip of a building, though. I'd take pictures of dogs if I were him. They're cute. Do you have a camera too, mister?
Yeah, I'm actually a photographer.
Mama said I'm too young to get a camera.
You got a camera, it's on your cell phone.
I'm sure your mama will eventually give you one. But won't you be late for school like this?
Big brother will get us there on time. Rowan promised Papa. We aren't going to be late. It's sports day. So it's not good if you keep looking like that today. If it ends up raining and we lose, it's your fault.
Alright, I'll try not to upset the clouds today, kid.
Is it because you're sick, mister?
Before I know it, a smile has spread over my face. They say kids ask the toughest questions sometimes. And they should do, but with how sincere Kylie looks, lying feels like doing her a huge
No,
disservice.
not sick. Just having a very, very bad day.
Why is that? Is that like when my big brother ate all of my pudding? He did that once and then cried. It wasn't very nice of him.
Yeah, I think so. You see, there's this mean girl. She's given my friends and I a lot of trouble. Hard to keep up when things are like that, you know? Especially when you can't do anything. It's kind of scary. Makes you wish things will just stay as peaceful as they used to be.
Maybe she just wants to be friends with you?
I highly doubt that. She already hurt one of my friends.
What if she's just sad? Or maybe she just wants help. That's what happened with Melody. I let her borrow my crayon when she left hers. Now we're playmates.
It's not really the same thing, Kylie. What she did, they're pretty bad things.
I still think there's another reason. Did you try talking to her? That's what Mama said I should do.
I don't think that'll work either.
You haven't even tried yet. You sound like Rowan. You're just scared, mister.
That strikes a chord. Maybe it's the honesty in her tone or simply the truth in the words itself. I don't know why, but I can't help it. Loud enough to disturb an elderly couple taking a leisurely walk nearby.
Why are you laughing?
That's nothing. You're a really smart kid, you know that?
That's what I've been doing, ain't it? Go full speed ahead and backtracks when the going gets tough. Stay in my safe zone because that's what I know. Once Dr. Navarro said I should be the first one willing to deal with my problems before anyone else. I didn't show up on our next appointment after that, but he's right, and though I hate to admit it, knowing what I've seen, but the kid makes a good point too. I've been caught up thinking there might not be a way out. Maybe there isn't, or maybe there is, but that doesn't mean I should just leave it up to fate.
You better get to school, though. Look at Miss Sports Day. You should have won yourself some awards, alright?
Alright. Can I show it to you when I do? That can cheer people up, right?